Hi, everyone. Hello. Happy Monday. I can't believe it's Monday. I feel like the weekend just flew right on by. But I'm super excited to be here talking to you today because this is a theme I keep seeing. So as you guys know, we ran the Lit Up Partnership recently. So I've been looking at a crap ton of business plans. I've been reading a ton of applications. Hey, Safia. And I've just been like really in a lot of people's businesses lately. Hey, Amanda, thank you for joining. And so the interesting thing is that there is like this really clear, hey, Anne, thank you guys for coming. There's like this really clear thing that I see that keeps so many people from making the sales they want to make. I would even say, so I run a value-centered sales mastermind. I think this is the challenge that a lot of them come to the mastermind with. Belinda, answer me back. So anyway, today that's what we're going to talk about. And I just wanted to give that perspective of like, I've been looking at all the business plans. I run a sales mastermind. And there is one thing that really is like a huge theme that keeps a lot of people stuck, a lot of people from not making the sales they want to make. Hey, Melissa. Hey, Karen. Okay, so first I want you guys to guess. You answered in your head. I actually do that a lot. Not with my clients, luckily, but I do that with people in my life where I'm like, oh yeah, I answered your text message. And they're like, no, you didn't. I'm like, yeah, I said it on, just my head. So anyway, I want you guys to guess. What do you think is the number one thing keeping people from making the sales they want to make? Drop it in the comment. No answer's wrong. Just like so curious what, your perspective is, your take is. I mean, because listen, like this is just my perspective. It doesn't mean I'm 100% right. This is just what I see keeping people, right? So I'm going to take a sip of my drink here and you guys tell me in the comments, what do you think is the number one thing? By the way, this is delightful. Strawberry Perrier. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. I'm like a recovering Diet Coke-aholic, and this really does the deal. Safia says lack of trust in themselves. Anne says not asking for the sale. I mean, for sure, I love those. Those are so good. Not quite what I was going to talk about today, but also, yes, totally relevant, both of those. Fear of rejection. Fear of rejection for the sale and getting a no. Yep, totally makes sense. Love that one, Amanda. Okay. So I think that in a sense, it's all of these things and none of these things. And what I mean by that is what I really think the number one thing is overcomplicating things, right? So overcomplicating everything as it relates to sales. But actually what that leads back to is a lack of trust in themselves, is them not asking. It's making everything complicated before I can ask. It's feeling like I have to ask in a certain way and do it perfectly and all these things. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to get out of overcomplicating, stop overcomplicating your sales process, stop getting yourself so stuck that sales feels like this like super hard game that you're playing instead of like this really easy replicable thing in your business. So when I say overcomplicating, I'm just going to talk about, I think maybe like 4 or 5 things that I usually see people overcomplicating. So the first one is too many offers. So I see this all the time when people aren't making the sales they want to make, is they just start throwing out more offers. They're like, well, I'll try this one and see if it works. I'll try this offer. Well, somebody said no to this. So what if they would say yes to this? Oh no. I hope it's your internet, Lorianne, and not me. Can everybody else see me okay? Am I breaking up for anyone? Let me know if we're good. Give me some like hearts or some things if you can see me. So yeah, too many offers. So, we're like, oh, somebody said, they couldn't afford it, but they would have done it if I had a 3-month program instead of a 6, or, maybe I need these 4 layers to my group program. Oh, thanks guys. Yeah. Hey, Jackie. Like maybe I need these extra layers to my group program where they can say yes at this point, but then they can say yes to these other points. And we start to make it really, really complicated. We make it really complicated for us to sell, and we make it really complicated for our audience to make decisions. So kind of how Anne and Amanda were saying, like not asking for the sale. Well, one of the ways we stop doing that is when we get it super complicated that we don't even know what we're asking for the sale on anymore, because we have like 7 layers that they can go through to work with us, right? I think the idea of a sales funnel is important, but I think sometimes we take that really far and we complicate it so much that we become confused. And so then our audience naturally becomes confused. And again, what that kind of falls back into is like, do I trust myself to pick the right thing, to be an expert on that thing, and to sell it, right? So that's what Safia was saying, is like that lack of trust, which this comes back to too. So like, if I'm throwing out a bajillion offers, it's probably because I really don't trust and feel like an expert in the offer that I have, right? Like if I could narrow my business down to 1 offer, I know I could sell the shit out of that. And like we require that much confidence. When you have 17 offers, what you're kind of saying is like, I'm not totally the expert. Please just pick one of these, right? And I know that's not what we're outwardly saying. And sometimes we want to give our audience different chances to work with us. But the more we can narrow in and not overcomplicate, the better, because what we're saying is I'm an expert and I know this is what's going to work for you, instead of please buy one of my things. Right? So overcomplicating leads to us not looking like an expert. It leads to lack of trust in ourselves. It leads to confusing our audience. Another way that I see that is with too many marketing strategies. So, we really want to make the sale. We really want to make the sale. So we want to throw everything at it. Just how we were talking about throwing like all the offers out there, because we just like are hoping kind of that somebody will say yes to one of them, right? We do that with marketing too, where it's like, well, I'm on Instagram and Pinterest and Facebook and I Snapchat, and also I do Instagram stories, and then sometimes I do blogs, and then also I guest blog and I do podcasts, and like it gets crazy, right? And what happens is we're so busy trying to do all of those things, we forget to do the things like ask for the sale, which is what y'all said earlier, and really just present like a clear picture to our audience of like where they can find us, where they can connect with us, where they can build a relationship with us, right? So it's really difficult to be a solo entrepreneur and on, 27 platforms and doing it really well, right? We end up losing kind of like our excitement. We lose the ability to do something really well. And that's what I mean by overcomplicating. Like I want my clients to have a replicable sales process that they know, if I do this thing, this reliably gets me a client. If I do this next thing, this reliably gets me the next client. Instead of like, I have to be 17 places and hoping and praying when I'm in all 17 of those places that a client will come to me in some way, shape, or form. And that overcomplicates it so much, because then we never really totally understand where our clients are coming from. Does anybody been there or get that, where you're like, I'm just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and then like sometimes someone shows up, right? Sarah says, amen. Yes. And listen, there's no shame in that, because that's kind of the message we're fed, is like, be everywhere, do everything, do all the strategies, do as many as you possibly can, and hopefully something will work out, right? Hey, Melissa. But that's not true. The more complication you add to your sales process, the less sales you're going to make. Honestly, hands down, every time. Christy says, if you're jumping around, you're not consistent enough in any one place to make an impact. 100%. Like, if you're doing a little bit everywhere, you're not doing really well anywhere, right? Now, unless you have this like giant team behind you that's managing all of that, which you don't even need for like the sales most of us want to make, right? You don't even need that to hit the $1 million mark, frankly. In more effort for not an even energy exchange of output. So I always say to my clients, like, I want you to put in the least amount of input for the most amount of output, meaning I want you to narrow in your sales process so well that you're doing the least amount of work and getting the most sales you possibly can. Like, that's your win. It's not like baseline, let me do 17 things just to get some one-on-one clients. And then when I want to grow, I don't have anywhere to expand into, right? What I want you to have is a super simple, uncomplicated process so that when you're ready to go to that next level, you can pull that next strategy out of your back pocket. You haven't exhausted them all, right? And you also know what's working. So when you're doing too many strategies at once, you're not quite sure which one is working. You might get one client randomly here, you might get one here. And so you're never at a place where you get to test and tweak because you don't actually know what's working. If you're doing one thing and doing it really, really well, you get to keep doing it better and better and better because you have the opportunity to look at what's working, to get data, to test, to tweak. If you're in too many places where you don't have the opportunity to do that, you're never actually going to be growing and improving. You're always going to feel like you're doing all the things and you're not quite sure where that next client's coming from or how you're getting them, or if you're focused in the right place. And that is the worst feeling in business, y'all. Even if you're making 10K months doing it that way, it's still a bad feeling, trust me, because it doesn't feel replicable, it doesn't feel consistent, and it doesn't feel like it's something you can really lean into. And that's a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs. They want to feel that consistency. They want to feel, like, obviously we're not going to a job and collecting a paycheck, but we want to feel some safety around it, right? So the more you're doing all the things, the less safety you're creating because you aren't creating that replicable process. You're just overcomplicating it, right? So the next thing that we overcomplicate is we switch around too much. So if something's not working in like 2 weeks, we're like, I posted in Facebook groups for 2 weeks and nobody was interested. So like, I don't do that anymore. So now I'm doing this. So Lacey, I'm never doing all the strategies at once, but I've tried everything and nothing works, right? Because you overcomplicated it because you're looking for that next thing, right? Instead of being like, what feels best to me is whatever, live streams, Facebook groups, my business page, it doesn't matter, podcasts, whatever. And so I'm going to work that thing until it works, right? That's not overcomplicating, right? Is deciding like, this is my thing and I'm sticking with it. And that's what creates results because, again, that's where you can test and tweak. So if you're moving around, jumping around, overcomplicating things onto every next strategy, you're never actually making it easy for yourself. You're always starting over and you're always making it really hard and really complicated, which leads to overcomplication through learning. So you're trying to learn the next thing. Has anybody been there, right? Like course junkies, right? Where we're like, if I just learn the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, then I'll finally find the thing, right? And it gets so complicated in our head. So many women that I've talked to lately, their problem isn't that they don't know enough. Their problem is that they know too much, right? Can you guys relate to that? Like your problem is that you know too much. And what I mean by that is that they've learned so much through courses, through research, through learning, webinars, this, that, whatever, downloads, all the things. And now they know too much. And what I mean by they know too much is that it's all so complicated in their head that they're frozen. They can't pick a strategy, right? They feel like, I need to know more, I need to know more, I need to know more. If I just knew this thing, if I just knew this thing, if I just knew this thing, right? And like, that is always overcomplication, right? What I mean by that is, if you are an expert at what you do and you pick one strategy and you stick to it and you see it through, and you continue to see it through. And even when it looks like it might not give you the exact result, you test and tweak it and continue to see it through, you will get the result. There is not more to know or perfect or do, right? The more you show up as you, commit to a strategy and see that strategy through, the more results you're going to get every time. The more you add layers and layers and layers and layers of knowledge, the more you're going to find a space where you can overanalyze it or feel like you're getting it wrong, right? Amanda says, I don't know enough. Jackie, this is so you. Amanda says, totally exactly where I was. Yep, when we started working together. Exactly, right? It's like you can overanalyze things to death. I always equate this to like dieting because I always joke that like if you know enough about nutrition, it feels like you could eat nothing but kale, right? Like because this philosophy says this is bad, and this philosophy says this bad, and this philosophy says this is bad, and maybe like not even just kale, like organic kale, right? And so then you feel paralyzed. You're like, what? Like everything I eat, there's a problem with. Nothing is like actually healthy. If I'm eating this whole wheat, then it's great because I'm getting fiber, but it's also bad because of gluten. And then what am I supposed to do? And it's like so decision fatiguing, so overwhelming, right? Has anybody been there, or am I just like a freak? No, nobody feels like they can't eat anything but kale. But like, that's what we do to ourselves in business, right? It's like every time we pick a strategy or pick a thing, we overcomplicate it to death. We're like, but this one webinar that I watched said this, and this one webinar said this, and this other coach said this, and this other thing said this. And so we just like overcomplicate everything. And so we either never move forward. Sherry, it's totally kale only, right? So we never move forward, or we move forward, but we move forward with the mindset that we're probably doing something wrong. Does that make sense? So Melissa, I totally feel like I can't eat anything but kale. Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not alone. But here's what's interesting about that. And this is what I've been really working on with myself around like the food thing. And I think is so applicable here is like when I decide that I feel like I can't eat anything but kale, or like I feel like everything but kale is bad for me is maybe a way to say it. I create that experience, right? Where I'm like eating the thing and feeling guilty for eating the thing, right? Like I'm eating the whole wheat bread and feeling like, oh, but it has gluten and I really shouldn't eat that. And so my body is like not taking that in a positive way. And I don't have the mindset that says this thing is going to make me feel really good and help me feel good in my body and give me energy. I'm like, oh, this thing's probably really bad for me because I can think of all these ways it's bad for me. Like, I'm not going to feel good from it. I'm going to have the experience that it's not great for me because I'm literally deciding and creating it. Same thing is true with strategies in sales. If I'm like, well, fine, I'll just like do the live streams, but like really I know I shouldn't be doing them, or I should be doing them better, or I should be doing them this way, or yeah, I did it, but I said this word too many times and I stumbled and I didn't make sense. And I really need a better strategy for it. And then I should probably do 5 other things because I'm not actually even that good at life, whatever, right? You're creating that experience. So anytime you're going into a strategy that you're overcomplicating and overanalyzing and you're deciding it's wrong before you even start, you're not going to get the sales you want from it. So you absolutely have to uncomplicate it in your brain and make a decision that you're not going to second guess, that you're going to show up. You're going to make the tweaks that are necessary, but you're going to keep showing up for that thing. It's sort of like the diet thing, right? I just have to pick one and go with it and decide that I'm going to feel great and amazing and it's going to feel good when I eat the whole wheat bread or whatever, because I'm going to be in the creation of that experience, right? So that's another reason that the overcomplicating piece is so difficult as it comes to like wanting to more, wanting to research more, wanting to learn more, is that it makes you feel like nothing you're doing is right. And so you don't get the results because you're like, nothing I'm doing is right. Nothing I'm doing is right. Like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing, but before I've even started, I already know I suck at it in these 2 ways, or that it might not work in these 3 ways, right? So the overcomplication factor is so huge to making it feel like you can never do anything right. And again, once you feel like that and decide that, that becomes your experience. That becomes what you're creating. Yeah. So the thing that tends to keep us from really making the sales is creating this super complicated mess of everything, even though you don't mean to be. And listen, it's so easy to do because you're getting advice from like 100 places. Most of it is unsolicited, right? It's just like coming at you in your newsfeed. And then, you know, a lot of advice is conflicting and contradictory. So it becomes very, very hard not to overcomplicate it. But honestly, when you stop doing that, everything shifts. Like, your sales can happen with so much ease and so fast when you decide on a process, you make it fit you and make it work for you, and you decide it's going to work, right? Like, there is literally no doubt in my mind that like I can make sales on repeat because I have a process. It's easy. I know it. I know it works for me. I know it feels good. And I just know how to do it. And I'm just not going to overcomplicate it and add a whole crap ton of stuff to it. Like, I'm not someone that uses Facebook ads a ton. I mean, I definitely have. I have experience with them. It's just not my main sales generator, right? So I could overcomplicate it and be like, oh my God, for the size business I have, I should be doing that and I should be figuring that out and I need it. But like, I don't need to, because I've figured out how to make the thing in front of me work, right? So I'm not wrong that I'm not doing ads. It's just something that I can keep in my back pocket. So when I want to go do something else or go to the next level or add, then I have that instead of like doing all the things now. I'm absolutely capped out. I'm absolutely at capacity for my sales process. Like, I'm doing all the things. I'm trying all the things. That's a scary place to be because you're like, what would I do when I want to grow? What would I do when I want to scale even more? Like, I want to be in a place where I have like 16 strategies lined up in my back pocket for when I want to go to that next level. That feels way better to me, and it feels safer than let me do all the things right now. Let me get them all on the table. Let me see which one maybe works, and then I'll go from there. I want to go, any process that I put my focus, energy, and attention to is going to work. Here's the one that feels good to me right now. And I'm going to work that baby until it works. And I'm going to make it work for me, meaning I'm going to put in the least amount of input for the most amount of output, right? Now, that sounds scary, I know, because you're like, but what if it doesn't work? What if, right? The truth is, if you figure out how to make sales feel good to you, if you figure out what your process is, if you figure out from point A to point, I don't know, Z, I suppose, although there's not that many steps in the sales process. Like, I know what's happening. I know how to convert. I know how to bring in leads. I know how to convert those leads. I know how to keep those leads. Everything gets easier, and it just feels like it's on repeat, and like, you know how to show up. You know what to do. You know what works. You know what gets you sales. When you're overcomplicating it, you never get to a process, if that makes sense, right? So like, when you're overcomplicating the food thing that we were talking about earlier, you never get to a point where you're just like, this is how I eat. And I don't have to think about it. I just do it, right? And that's how I want sales to start feeling for you when you stop overcomplicating it. This is just how I make sales. It's like brushing my teeth. I show up, I do it, right? And I know that if you're sitting here listening and doing all the things, you're like, that can sound like a far-fetched dream. Hey, Natasha. But the truth is, what it requires is a lot of bravery, because you have to go all in on one thing and you have to make it work, and you have to trust yourself that if it feels good to you, it's going to continue to work. But if you do that, it isn't a far off dream. It's really easy, right? I'm doing the Value Centered Sales Mastermind right now, and I had one of the clients in it. Her goal was like, she was like, I just want to feel like I know how to get sales. Like, I just want to feel like it's not like lucky when someone shows up. Like, I just want it to feel like I have a replicable process and I know how to get it. And then today on the call, she was like, so like, I don't even know what to ask for support on right now, because like, I just know how to go get sales. Like, I know what my process is. I'm in it. I'm replicating it. I made a sale today. Like, I just know how to get sales. So that's interesting. That feels weird. And it was just like so cool to hear her say that, because what we've actually done for her is really uncomplicate her process and really like give her some systems that are easy and that work. And so to be able to be in that place where you're like, I just know how to make sales in my business is like the most empowering thing. To be in that place where you feel like you're at the mercy of Facebook's algorithms and Instagram ads and like all these things is so scary, right? So it does take courage to go all in on one thing, but when you take away the complication, when you take away all the other things spinning around, it gets easier and easier. Now, is it easy? No. Does it get easier? Yes. Now, so what you really have to do then, what's required of you is to do the mindset work around that, right? So pick the strategy. You got to do that work too. You got to figure out what your sales process is. But then what happens is once we do that, if we have a lull or things don't seem like they're working the way we want them to, or it's taking time to build the momentum, what we do so often is we like hit the easy button and we go to the next strategy instead of like staying in it and having to do the mindset work of like, this is really uncomfortable to stay in this and stay in belief, but I'm going to do that work instead of going and watching the next webinar and like hitting that easy button of like, give me another strategy to make me feel better. I'm going to go, nope, staying with this strategy and doing the mindset work to be in belief and be comfortable picking it, right? So that's the thing. Got to do the work of uncomplicating it. Then you got to pick the strategy. Then you got to do the mindset work that lets you stick to the strategy. Because it's not easy, but if you do that work, that's when you'll see results. It's, again, I'm going to go back to the food thing. It's like if you overeat when you're feeling emotional and you're just like, well, I'm just going to go overeat this food instead of this food, you're still really not solving the problem. You're just changing the problem a little. But if you do the mindset work of like, okay, instead of overeating, I'm going to like sit with this and I'm going to feel this and I'm going to feel better in this way, that's when you're getting real results, right? So same thing here. You got to do the practical work of picking a strategy, and then you've got to do the mindset work behind it, because when we overcomplicate, it's always because we don't trust that the thing we're doing is going to work, right? So it's kind of like Safia said, we don't trust ourselves. So you got to pick the thing, got to stick to the thing. That is my whole spiel. That's all I got. I know that it sounds easy, or it's easier said than done is how I should say it. It sounds easy when I'm sitting here talking about it. It's really challenging in practice. Totally get that. But it's also the thing that's worth doing because you're going to actually see the results from it. It's actually going to change your business. What's not going to change your business is to keep jumping from strategy to strategy, to keep learning more and more, to keep overcomplicating more and more. All it's going to do is burn you out, truthfully. So this is my invitation to you guys to pick your thing, stick to your thing, do the mindset work around it. But for the love of God, stop overcomplicating it, because that is the thing that's keeping you from making sales, hands down. So, if you have questions about this, I'm happy to stick around and answer them. Otherwise, I do have the mastermind for this. We have Value Centered Sales Mastermind. So that really, the whole point is creating a replicable sales process. We look at the mindset piece behind it. We do the actual work of creating a sales process for you in your business that requires least amount of input for most amount of output. Mostly, we make a sales process that fits you, and I think that's the actual key. Which is like, if what you're doing feels good, you're going to keep doing it. If what you're doing feels bad, you're going to stop doing it. So that's the whole thing. It's like, we got to figure out what works for you and then how to make it replicable and how to keep doing it. So if you want to join me for that, we have a wait list right now. Normally we only launch to our wait list. So jump on there if you're interested, because I usually don't launch publicly in the group. It's lituplife.com/value-centered sales. But again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them here. Safia says, so good as usual. I always walk away feeling inspired after listening to you. Oh, beautiful. I'm so glad. Amanda says, thanks, Lacey. Totally valuable. Awesome. Good, good. Cool. So join us for the wait list if you want to be part of the mastermind. It's a 3-person mastermind only, which I am obsessed with, because we actually get to go deep. So I had a call with the mastermind earlier. There's only 3 of them in there. They each got 20 minutes of time. They learn from each other. It's just so valuable to have someone in your business and in your sales process that deeply and in that way, which is like the whole point of this, right? Figuring out how to make it work for you, not just taking another course. How do I take all the information I know, uncomplicate it, put it into a process that works, right? Sarah says, thank you. This is everything I'm feeling right now. Oh, I love that. Well, and like, right, you got to listen to that gut feeling where you're like, why am I making it so complicated? Because it's not, which, you know, just like not to go crazy here or down another rabbit hole, but I think that it's just so important to know that it is possible not to feel nuts about this. Like, I was talking to one of my friends this morning, and we were talking about just like business success and stuff. And we were like, it's just so good to be at the point where it feels easy and we know how to create it. Now, I'm not saying that everything about business is easy or that I don't show up or do the work or do the hard work or do the mindset work all the time. But like, it feels so good to be like, this thing is easy. Like, I can create money. I can create sales. Like, that part's like on lock. Like, it's not even a question. It's like, my hair grows, you know, like, it's just like, I can create money in sales because I have a process and it works and I believe in it. And that's that. Like, when you can get to that point, like, nothing can stop you in business. And that's the gift I want to remind you, is that when you let yourself lean into actually creating a process, to believing in it, to doing the work around it, it can feel that good and that easy. Like, you can feel empowered in your business. You don't have to feel like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing 90% of the time. Like, you get to feel like, you know, some things I don't know what the fuck I'm doing wrong, but this one thing I have on lockdown, I'm going to get sales, right? So know that it's possible for you. Know that it does not come through overcomplication. I promise there's not this like magic thing that if you just knew this thing, everything would be different, right? I know it's so tempting to say, but it's not. It's possible. You just got to lean into what feels good for you, what's true for you, and then do the practical and mindset work around it, as with anything. Safi says, value-centered sales is an amazing program. Hop on it if you're struggling with sales. Lacey does sales like no one else. Oh, thank you, Safi. That's so sweet. Hey, Jennifer. All right, y'all. I am going to jump off. I hope this was helpful. Think about this. Tell me in the comments what you're committing to. What is your process? Oh, and then let me put, I'll put the waiting list in the comments. lituplife.com/value-centered sales. If y'all have any questions about that, let me know, but definitely check out that page. And again, just know that you don't have to overcomplicate it. In fact, the least complication, the most results is almost always true. So I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you guys for joining me, and I hope y'all have a good week. Bye.